Hello, hi. I'm living alone for the next 3 days. My name is Rosalie. I live in Dallas, Texas with my 2 pets and my partner who is normally here all the time but is actually out of town this week. So I figured we could cosplay living alone. I'm thinking sleepover. I'm thinking tackling the to-do list. I mean, realistically, nothing is really going to be that different because my daily routine doesn't really depend upon the schedule of anybody else, but my night routine is typically where I feel it the most when he's not here because we have really intentional phone free time. We watch our shows together, we have little date nights, so nighttime is when I'm gonna feel it, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, hence the sleepover. It's actually really sweet. He left me pupusas this morning for breakfast because I have been talking literally since we moved to Dallas 3 years ago now, which is insane, about how badly I want to try this local Salvadorian restaurant, and we never have. But today he was running errands and people he was talking to were telling him how the area that he was in had really good Salvadorian food, and he was like, oh, let me bring that home, and it was very good. Also, yesterday he was packing up his stuff and he was like, do you have enough books for while I'm gone? It's like, yes, I have enough books for while you're gone. Humble me a little bit more, please. Reading is all that I do with my free time. Thank you so much. Speaking of which, I actually have some books that I'm really obsessed with right now that I just finished, that I'm in the middle of, that I really want to just chat about, word vomit about, because if you get it, then you get it. So this is just gonna be an average couple days of my life for the most part, and I guess a little more kikiing than normal at nighttime. I finished a vlog. This is my Austin vlog, which took me an atrocious amount of time to edit, to be honest with you. It's a 10-minute video that was filmed almost a month ago. Okay, but the thing is, I just wasn't inspired by it. I wasn't excited about it. I felt like I didn't get enough footage while we were there. I almost scrapped it, but I was like, this is really good for the memories to look back on because we have all of our anniversary trips. On my YouTube channel, and I always praise about making things just for the fun of making them, but then I go and be extra judgmental about my own art. So that's not happening. I'm really excited though because the next vlog after this, I am like so pumped to edit. It's a cute little weekend-ish in my life. It's like a few days of my life in Dallas. I went to a One Direction club night with my friends. I went on a date night, oh yeah, we went on a date day. We did like you'll see it. But it was a fun little weekend. And so that one I'm really excited to edit. But actually I was realizing that I talked about this in my last vlog, the one that you're gonna see that I'm about to edit. So by the time this goes up, the last vlog on my channel. I talked about how I am now filming on my iPhone because my camera has RIP'd. We don't know when we're gonna replace her. But honestly, it's been really fun to use my iPhone because it's so much easier to set up on like a tripod and just to have with me. Like if I'm at a concert or a club night, it's so much less dramatic to pull out an iPhone than it is to pull out a camera. So in certain situations, it kind of helps me get more in the moment footage because it's not as in your face. People go to the club to feel like they can loosen up and be themselves. Nobody wants to see a professional camera being pulled out to record them while they're doing questionable things. So yeah, I'm making lemonade. I really am, and I do think it's going to be a good thing for me. And I mean, it's not even like it's some punishment. It's really not that big of a deal. I'm lucky to even have this option. So normally I would be at the gym by now, but I am procrastinating because I spend too much time on my phone. TBH. This is the thing about filming days of my life is, and I realized this about short form content too. I've been in like a short form content brainstorm today, so excuse me if this is what I'm talking about right now. I just put up a video that I really loved. I made vanilla cupcakes for the first time yesterday and I'm very proud of the way they turned out. I paired that with a Noah Kahan song and I was very happy about that upload, okay? Anyway, I've realized that my day in the life looks so much different than other people's because I literally film every single thing I'm doing. I'm filming me feeding my pets. I'm filming taking them potty. I'm filming getting in the shower, being in the shower, getting out of the shower, putting my products on after the shower, to the point where I think it goes from being cinematic, because the whole reason why I do that is so I can get different angles and like different perspectives and make it interesting visually. But I think that makes it go from being cinematic to just taking too long to get to into the actual, what's that phrase? The actual meat of the video. So I'm playing around with that, but at the same time, I don't want to compromise my style. I'm totally fine with it evolving, but I don't want to compromise it just for the sake of it being clickable, which I think is the reason why I always end up coming back to YouTube. I always end up being so glad that I have this little vault of memories because long form content will always be superior. And I'm glad that the rest of the world is now kind of starting to realize that. So, let's go ahead and drink some water. Yeah. And then, oh my God, random fact. Okay, this is gonna be the chattiest vlog ever. Random fact. I was listening to the What We Said podcast earlier this week because if you are not on the same internet as me, JC Marie Smith just had her daughter after years of infertility, and it's just been the most beautiful thing to witness. I'm so happy for her. But she came out with her podcast episode talking about her birth story, and she ended up getting a kidney infection that led to sepsis because she had a UTI after giving birth, but she didn't realize that she had a UTI because she had never given birth before, so she didn't know if the pain was from healing from childbirth or having UTI. And anyway, the nurse asked her while she was there, do you get UTIs a lot? And she was like, yeah, kind of, like, I guess so. And the nurse was like, oh, well, do you hold your pee a lot? And JC was like, yeah, I guess so, like, now that I think about it. And the nurse legitimately said to her, it is better to go pee in the nastiest, grossest, most public restroom you can find as soon as you realize you have to pee than to hold it. That is how detrimental it is for your body to hold your pee, which I think we all know. We know it's not good to hold your pee, but I think sometimes we forget, like, oh no, that's actual waste just like sitting in my body. And that is a lesson that I need to reteach myself because I go in and out of phases where I'm good about that, but drinking water has been such a big priority for me in the past couple years with taking care of my mental health and everything. And I guess I've been pretty good about drinking water, but it is so annoying because I have to wake up so many times in the middle of the night. I have to go like so many times during the day, and it gets annoying. It gets in the way of work and stuff. But I really need to be careful about that because my family, my birth family, actually has a history of kidney failure. So, play stupid games, win stupid prizes, Rosalie. Anyway, I'm stalling. Let's go to the gym.
After, very grateful. I have to walk. And it's like a change.
Self-deprecating because apparently you talk a lot to showing everybody.
Being a people person and like
It's just
people who
Canadians being really bad.
Honestly, please don't mistake this for me telling you that you need to buy these. You most certainly do not. They are outrageously expensive. However, if you're in the market for a good shoe and you're pretty active and you want something that's super supportive, I really, really recommend Hoka's. I got mine, I want to say like 2 months ago, and I have been wearing them like legitimately every single chance I get. I will purposely match my outfits to them so that I can wear them. I wear them when I grocery shop, when I run errands, when I exercise, when I'm just bopping around town. They're so comfortable, and I know that they're effective because I had to stop going to kickboxing in October of last year because I get this like reoccurring knee pain, and it's really annoying. It comes at like the most inconvenient times, but rest is obviously something that I value so much. I think rest is resistance, rest is powerful, and rest is something that we're all inherently deserving of. Don't even let me go to my spiel right now. So I had to take a break. While using these shoes, I have not had an ounce, a bit, a sneaky little hint of knee pain, which is really saying something because I walk on an incline most of the time. I do a mix of a lot of different exercises. I've talked before about how I have a complicated relationship with food and exercise, just like every other woman in the world, it seems, because the patriarchy is doing its job. But I do a mix of a lot of different movement just depending on how I'm feeling, what I'm liking, what my body wants. So sometimes that can look like running, walking, okay, never running. Never running. I don't know where that came from. Walking, dancing, yoga, lifting. Y'all know how much I love lifting. Actually, have I talked about that much on here? I think I have. I talk about it a lot in the context of mental health. I can't say enough good things about it. I can't explain the science behind it. I know that there is science behind it, but when I'm lifting weights, I can feel my brain repairing itself in real time. It's crazy. It makes me so much more mentally stable. But I don't do it every day, obviously, because that wouldn't be sustainable. I've recently started doing floor workouts on the mat with like smaller weights. That's been pretty cool. Swimming, of course. Swimming is my love. Every time I get get into a pool, I just feel like I'm reconnecting with my younger self. I'm also a water sign, so you know, it's like coming home to myself every single time. Anyways, all of that to say, I do a lot in these shoes, and I know that they're not technically meant for all of those different kinds of exercise, but do you think that I am going to buy a different pair of shoes for every single kind of exercise I do? Absolutely not. In this economy, absolutely not. I feel like I can feel a little bit of sadness creeping in. I'm getting a little bit sad because this is around the time when my partner would normally be getting home from work and we start doing our wind down routine. So I think my body just knows that, and it feels really weird that I'm not doing that right now, which is my fault because I should be getting home from the gym by now, but I put it off because I was avoiding my feelings because I knew the second that I stopped working, I was going to start thinking about it. And it is very pathetic indeed that I am a mess over a man. Me missing a man publicly? Girl, it's been a day. That's so embarrassing. Please. I need to go to the gym. Let's go. Let's go. Look at this little man. Do you see him? Would you like cat TV? Hi. Hey, you. Hi. What are these ads, huh? Don't you know you're a cat? You're not gonna buy car insurance. Good boy. Is that a good one? Do you approve? You like this show? Okay. Okay, I'll be back. I love you. Oh, you scared Eddie. Oh, good boy. I love you. I'll be back. I know this isn't the most energy efficient thing ever, but I'm leaving the ambience lighting on in my apartment so I can come home and know that it's gonna feel cozy and not dark and spooky. Hi, baby. How am I ever supposed to leave my house? Are you kidding me? I am grateful for my partner every single day. There's so much that he does to contribute to the household without ever even being asked. And I am so grateful for a man that does not lean into learned incompetence, because that's just some shit that I could not tolerate. However, despite the fact that I am grateful every single day, it doesn't make it any easier when the things that he normally does for us become my responsibility. Waking up at the crack of dawn to feed my cat that's screaming in my ear, taking my dog for a walk around the neighborhood when the sun has not even fully come up yet. You know, the vibes. But nonetheless, we persist, we got it done, and it actually wasn't as hard as I was anticipating it being. I stayed up a little bit too late last night reading my book. I'm currently reading The Guncle. Let me grab the book. I'm currently reading a few things, only one of which is like an entertainment book. The other two are more, well, they're entertainment, but they're more self-help educational. This is the one that I was reading last night. It's The Guncle. You've probably heard about it. There's also a second one that has come out, I believe. This book has caught me really off guard. I remember seeing it in Barnes & Noble a long time ago and like flipping through it, really being interested by it, but not wanting to buy it because I was just like, I don't know how to explain my thought process when it comes to whether or not a book is worth buying. It's so random, but sometimes it's just a vibe, and I couldn't figure out the vibe with this one. So I saw it in the library earlier this year. I've had these books for way too long. I'm so sorry, Dallas Public Library. But I found this in the library and I was like, let me take it because I was intrigued enough by it, and if I don't like it, then I can just bring it back. Wow. I'm only like a quarter of the way through, and in just 100 pages or so, it has really taken a turn. If you're not familiar with it, this is about the Guncle, who is the gay uncle Patrick, who ends up being responsible for looking after his niece and nephew after their mom passes away from a terminal illness and their dad has to go into treatment for his own issues. I obviously have not finished it yet, but in the beginning, it feels like this superficial book that's just gonna be about a kid that speaks in a baby voice and an uncle that fits all of the gay workday stereotypes, which is fine, but I didn't know if that would be enough to keep me interested throughout the entire book. Wow, it actually touches on some really dark topics and also really highlights the power of community and like how when you love people, making sacrifices doesn't feel like making sacrifices. It's really beautiful. It's set in Palm Springs, which I've never really understood the hype about. Maybe that's because I was born in California and I just have too much experience with the heat, but it is really beautiful to imagine kind of a don't worry darling background and to get a few laughs in. So I'm really enjoying this, and what makes it even better is that when I'm reading this, I picture the guy who acted in that one Christmas movie on Netflix about the two gay best friends. One of them is a TaskRabbit, the other one is freshly single. I'll insert his picture here. It's one of my favorite Christmas movies. It's relatively newer. It just hits. It hits, and I picture his face as I'm reading this book, which makes it 10 times better. Moving on to my other reads because I'm really interested in them right now. This is actually a book that's on loan from my therapist. It's called Big Magic, and it essentially just talks about being a creative person, pushing through fear, pushing through limiting beliefs, but it's also a very self-aware book that isn't just a white woman telling you if you want it hard enough, you can have it regardless of your circumstance. Obviously, privilege is a real thing, and I really appreciate a person who can balance a nuanced perspective about being a creative person under a capitalistic society and also having the courage to believe in yourself and take the steps necessary to pursue the life that you want. This does that really beautifully, and it also is so good at calling you out on your own shit that you probably don't even realize you're participating in. Just a really good read about being accountable, being in love with your creative work, giving it a chance to thrive, having fun, not being so pretentious. It's a great read. It really gets you out of a comparison mindset if that's something that you struggle with. I know that's something that's really prevalent among creators of all kinds. More than anything, it talks so much about abundance and the fact that ideas are limitless. Ideas will bounce around from person to person until it finds the right host, and just how much of that is within your control. So I really, really love this book. I read a little bit of it every day. It's the book that I've currently chosen for like my 5 to 10 minute reading in the morning because it's really inspiring, but it's also educational, and I really love a story from a person's personal perspective, and Elizabeth Gilbert is the woman who wrote Eat, Pray, Love, if you're not familiar. So she knows what she's talking about. Lastly, I posted about this on my Instagram, and I feel like I have been telling everyone who will listen about this book. This was actually in my most recent book haul. I'll link the video here if you haven't seen it. It's called It Didn't Start With You: How Inherited Family Trauma Shapes Who We Are and How to End This Cycle by Mark Wolin. This book, this is how far into the book I am, and I have already gotten so much from it. I joke that The Body Keeps the Score is like my Bible because, as we've talked about a million times on this channel, I am someone who lives with complex PTSD, and while I now know that the author of that book is a little bit problematic for several reasons, I try to no longer recommend it. However, I cannot discount the fact that it was the first thing that I read when I was diagnosed that truly validated so much of the experiences I was having, and that was life-changing for me at the time. However, that book focuses primarily on the person who is experiencing the trauma now, the way that that trauma is expressed, the long-term repercussions that trauma can have. He goes into a lot of examples about war veterans, which is a common thing when discussing this diagnosis, but personally not something that I'm that interested in hearing, because I just think that while the struggles of people who have been in combat or have been caught in the realm of war in any way whatsoever are very, very real, I have mixed emotions about like the military industrial complex, so it can be a little bit hard for me to sympathize, honestly. And also, that's just not my experience. I've never fought in war, and my trauma is just as valid, just like a million other people who have so many varied forms of trauma. And so I find that reading about research based on veterans is just not always, it's not always the most validating thing, because it's just not the most relatable thing for a lot of people. Nonetheless, The Body Keeps the Score was an incredible read for me. I will carry some of those stories and some of those examples with me for the rest of my life. But with that being said, some of the criticism that people have is that those stories are re-traumatizing. So just keep that in mind if you are going to pick that book up. I do think it's worth the read, but I also think it is a matter of separating the art from the artist, and also maybe buying it used or on loan from your library so you're not putting money in their pocket. All of that to say, This book focuses completely on generational trauma and the way that that trauma actually gets carried from one generation to another. I always thought, and maybe this is silly, but I can't be the only one, I have always respected generational trauma as a real thing, but my idea of it until pretty recently was just that it was generational trauma in the sense that if your family doesn't communicate very well, you're going to take that behavior and repeat that pattern with your own kids, or if you are raised in a house with domestic violence, you're a lot more likely to perpetuate that cycle, etc., etc. That is what I kind of always thought people meant when they were talking about generational trauma. And it wasn't until the past couple of years when I started seeing my current therapist that I learned just how literal the process of trauma being transmitted from one body to another is. This is really helping me have a true comprehension of that, though. I want to read you a couple snippets that just absolutely blew my mind. This is page 33. The first one being, children of PTSD-stricken mothers are 3 times more likely to be diagnosed with PTSD than children in other control groups. Children of survivors are 3 to 4 times more likely to struggle with depression and anxiety or engage in substance abuse when either parent suffered from PTSD. We know that. That's pretty straightforward. What I didn't know is that researchers have also been able to distinguish differences in a child's symptoms based on whether the mother or the father passed on the PTSD. Paternal PTSD increases the likelihood that the child will feel dissociated from his or her memories, whereas maternal PTSD increases the likelihood that a child will have difficulty calming down. So interesting. And listen to this. Studies show that mothers under extreme and constant stress are more likely to have babies who are premature, lower than average in weight, hyperactive, irritable, and colicky. Of course, makes a lot of sense. But in extreme instances, these babies are born with thumbs sucked raw or even ulcers. That's wild. That's wild. I think we all know somebody who has had difficult circumstances throughout pregnancy just by the nature of the fact that pregnancy is 9 months long and pregnant women still have to exist in this world. Ooh, I just can't imagine the pressure of carrying a child and also being stressed about the environment impacting them, no matter how hard you try to be resilient to the stress. Whew. Lastly, this absolutely blew my mind, and this is where we get more into the literal transmission of the trauma. This one's a bit wordy, but stick with me. The history you share with your family begins before you are even conceived. In your earliest biological form, as an unfertilized egg, you already share a cellular environment with your mother and grandmother. When your grandmother was 5 months pregnant with your mother, the precursor cell of the egg you developed from was already present in your mother's ovaries. This means that before your mother was even born, your mother, your grandmother, and the earliest traces of you were all in the same body, 3 generations sharing the same biological environment. This isn't a new idea. Embryology textbooks have told us as much for more than a century. Your inception can be similarly traced in your paternal line. The precursor cells of the sperm you developed from were present in your father when he was a fetus in his mother's womb. With what we're learning about the ways that stress can be inherited, we can begin to map out how the biological residue of traumas your grandmother experienced can be passed down with far-reaching consequences. This is, however, a significant biological difference in the evolution of the egg and the sperm. Your father's sperm continued to multiply when he reached puberty, whereas your mother was born with her lifetime supply of eggs. Once her egg cells were formed in your grandmother's womb, that cell line stopped dividing. So 12 to 40 or so years later, one of those eggs, fertilized by your father's sperm, eventually developed into who you are today. In either case, both precursor egg and sperm cells, science now tells us, can be imprinted by events with the potential to affect subsequent generations. Because your father's sperm continues to develop throughout adolescence and adulthood, his sperm continues to be susceptible to traumatic imprints almost up until the point when you are conceived. Oh my god. I've been rambling about my books for far too long. Thank you for listening if you're still listening. Leave me recommendations for similar books with similar research if you have them. I am so infinitely interested in learning about it. Some other recommendations that I do have, if you're also interested, are My Grandmother's Hands, Pleasure Activism, of course, Adrienne Maree Brown and everything that she does. beautiful. All About Love, of course. Bell Hooks is just the leader of our generation, I feel. What My Bones Know, I actually haven't read that one, but it is a major recommendation from my therapist. Another one that I've been recommended from her is Women Who Run with Wolves, I believe is what it's called. There's quite a few. I actually have an entire Goodreads board of books that my therapist has recommended to me that I'm slowly but surely making my way through, so I will link that in my description if you're interested in it. But also, while you're doing that research and diving into that entire world, also just try to remember to take it slowly. Don't overwhelm yourself. There is research, but there's also intuition and being in tune with your body, and you don't want to overwhelm yourself with information that is going to send you into emotional flooding. So yeah, I'm obviously not a professional or anything at all, but I'm figuring this thing out day by day. It's going to be a lifelong process, as you know, if you live with a similar thing. And if you do, I really empathize, and I am proud of you for sticking through all of the ways in which it can be difficult to exist with it. And if you don't have a support system, I really urge you to create one, whether that be starting with even your therapist and your psychiatrist, confiding in them, and then building outward from there. Trust me, I know how incredibly difficult it is to meet new people, especially as an adult, but go to book clubs, go to the library. They have so many local events. I can make an entire video on what building community actually looks like, but take care of yourself, please, and know that it is such a miraculous thing for you to even be carrying on every single day. And more than anything, your experience is. Anyway, digging myself out of that deep well that I just dug, let's go ahead and get into some computer work. I have quite a few things that I want to get done, and I'm ready to log in. Several hours later, my laptop needed to update, so I took that as a cue to finally get up from the desk. I swear a lot of the time it's so hard for me to focus, but then other times you cannot pry me away from my desk. And I don't mean that in a hustle culture type way. I am the last person to endorse hustle culture. However, when I get into that flow state, I am in that flow state, and there's nothing that can get me out of it, which I'm thankful for. But I wish I could control it more often and have it more often. It's 8 p.m. I am already grieving the fact that we're approaching the end of late sunset months. I'm deeply unwell at the thought that it's going to be pitch black at this time in just a few weeks, but that's an issue for another day. Okay, and with that, we will get some benefits. So it's not all bad. Anyways, I'm talking about the weather. So I'm gonna set like a 10-minute timer, and maybe like a 5-minute timer, because it's not really messy in here. But I'm just gonna set like a 5-minute timer and tidy up. I made a smoothie earlier and just kind of left the mess on the counter. I need to take Roxy potty, and then I need to change for the gym. Let's go. Please, that's the thing about filming, okay. That's the thing about filming with my back camera, is I can't tell when my little baby hairs are popping out of the sides. Listen, the curly cut works when the curls are down, but it does pose a challenge for the baby hairs when I do a bun, which is like 90% of the time. Okay, mind your business. Called this a living alone vlog just got 1,000 times more dramatic because my partner actually is coming home early. So I've only been home by myself for 2 days. And that's what I get for wasting so much of my time alone scrolling my phone, because I had so many other things that I wanted to do and I just didn't do them. So it'd be like that sometimes, you know? Sometimes you just get sucked into the internet and you regret it. What can you do? Right, Maxie? What can you do? I know. She said, my dad's coming? Your dad's coming? I'm so excited. There's a Mexican food place in Round Rock, which is like, I don't know, like 25 minutes outside of Austin when you're leaving Austin and coming back to Dallas. If you were in that area, I highly recommend their burritos, specifically their breakfast burritos. They're so good. So I'm super excited because he picked some up for us and we never get to have them because they're 3 hours away. So that'd be great. Tom Waxy, that'd be great. She's gonna freak out when he gets here. But yeah, I just had a hair wash, put in a nice little curly mask. It was getting a little questionable because when I do slick back buns, I have to use hairspray and gel and it gets flaky. And by the end of the week, sometimes it's a little nasty. I can't lie to you. But what do I always say, Roxy? What do I always say? It'd be like that. Anyway, thanks for hanging out with me. Thanks for listening to my rambles and every single thought that comes into my head. I never say this, I need to say it more, but subscribe, like this video, subscribe if you would like to see more of me. I'm so happy to have you here, and I think we have fun. I will see you in the next one. Bye.